Hi guys, and welcome back to the Once You're In podcast. This is episode number 17. Reece is another week deep in on prep.
On prep.
On prep. So how you doing, mate?
That's the one that annoys me. So, I usually say all good. We're not doing all good. I've been underselling it to you. I've been acting like a man, but in reality, in my head, I'm a bit like, I feel pretty bad. I don't really know how PG I'm going to be, but to put it simply, my digestion is absolutely appalling. The last few days, Finn had a bit of an episode early last week, and I, for some reason, have somehow caught it, and my body is not really responding in the way that yours did. AKA, you felt off for about 2 days, where I've now, it's Tuesday. I had my first wave of food not sitting too well on Thursday, and since Thursday I've probably been to the toilet, I'd like to say, over 40 times. It's absolutely silly. Not much food sitting too well with me. It's resulting in what feels like all fluid, all minerals, everything not sitting well at all. Because everything's cramping. I just feel pretty dire, if I'm honest. I said to Tender yesterday, it was I feel like I'm using default, creator class guns at level 1. Usually I'm in the gym and I feel quite good, and in reality now I'm using level 1 guns. I've got no attachments. Everyone's using red dot sights and everything, and I'm out here using iron sights. So I'm just not in a good position. I don't feel too great, but fortunately that's not from the prep. I don't think it is. It's just exacerbated because I'm in an energy deficit, shall we say. But if we're talking strictly from a prep, feel sound. I made a fair few tweaks and changes over the last week or so. Steps have gone up on both training and non-training days. Nothing excessive, just 1,000 extra. To be fair, on my training days, I was ticking over 10,000 steps anyway. It's really hard. I find it impossible if I'm going for 2 walks, to keep my steps below 10,000 anyway. It was already going to be 11,000. So non-training days, just a little bit higher. It's 13,500, which, if I'm honest, I don't think they're going to be intentionally much higher. It was more so just going for a little bit longer on my second walk of the day. Food has also been manipulated. Bagels have been taken out. They were taken out, I think, after the last podcast, which was a shame on training days. I used to have 2 bagels in my pre, and I've now got 3 crumpets. So 22 carb pulled and 6 protein. I feel like I said that actually on the last one. I think it was in the pipeline for what was changed.
You planned it.
Yeah, so that was planned. So food was down on training days. Food will be slowly coming down on non-training days, but I wanted to hold off until my stomach's all right, because I was actually going to be adding in a little bit more veg and actually a bit more voluminous food. Help me out, voluminous, that's what I'm going to go with, food. And I'm just going to pull down carbs slightly by 25. So we're at a stage now where, I said on a few podcasts, I go through periods, and I quite like the idea of almost pushing for a week or 2, kind of making a fair few changes, then holding off, seeing kind of how long you can ride off those changes, then pushing again. And with current condition, my front I'm quite happy with my front. I wasn't too happy with how I was looking on Monday. I think the slight illness, shall we say, not feeling too great physically, likewise mentally, I just felt a bit off it. It was a bit of a weird one on Monday. The session was mint numbers wise, but it was just a bit of a strange one. So I could tell I was pretty battered. But visual look, bar Monday, I was happy. My front's lean, my sides are really lean, to be fair. My back's still not lean, but it will get to a point where there's not enough fat on my front to really pull from there, so it has to come off my back. That's what almost I'm thinking. It will get to a point where there's no fat on my front, and it will be right, well, there's not too much more fat on my arms. My delts are pretty lean. The only real thing I probably got fat on is my mid to lower back, and then my legs. My front's it's not shredded. It will still get leaner. There's still more to come off, but it's not too far off what I would need it to be at. So yeah, a few changes have gone in for that. Training, this is the most in-depth one I've gone for. Training's changed as well. We've pulled down the pull volume so basically Saturday was an upper session, and what we've done now is we've taken the pull volume out, because it was almost accessory kind of weekly total volume. So it was a dumbbell chest supported row 2 sets, and then 2 sets of it's a hammer strength replica, but like a standing unilateral single arm D handle.
It's live fitness.
Is it live fitness? Fair enough. Yeah. But anyway, so we had that in. So it was literally, I had on my upper session, it was basically a push session with 4 working sets of pull. And we've pulled them away. Get it? Pulled the pulls away. And we pretty much now, I've just gone to the one kind of pull session per week on Mondays. Basically, the reason why I was on that Monday session, I just noticed that recovery was just getting it was noticeable that like I was coming around. It's only 2 sleeps time from that Saturday session. So I was noticeably thinking like this is getting a bit of a challenge to recover. I was going into that Monday session still pretty beaten up, even though it's only 4 working sets, due to the tempo manipulation, due to the accuracy, should we say, in those sets, and then like the movement patterns, they were battering me quite a lot. So pulled that away completely. It's now pretty much an approach of 1 pull session per week on Mondays. I have 2 like push and arms. They're a little bit different in design. The session on Wednesday is actually 4 presses. The overall volume is fairly similar, but there's more isolation work on the Saturday session, which is now, instead of an upper, it's more like a push and arm B, should we say. But there's a little bit more arm work on that session. There's a little bit more isolation work, as we say, and there's actually 1 less main push. So it's almost like trying to tick off a little bit, not more musculature, but just trying to almost have a wider range of things that we're trying to kind of tick off in that session, and then from like a weekly setting. And I think everything else has stayed relatively the same. So to summarize, and also actually cardio has gone in on Saturday. So I'm doing cardio pretty much. I'm doing everything. Cardio's in every day bar lower. I call this period of time that I quite enjoy, because it's when you can be quite aggressive and then the visual look hopefully will come through. So exciting times. If I felt good in the sense of me not having to go to the toilet, everything would be mint, but I don't feel great. But we'll see. But no, other than that, mate, everything's fine. I don't know if you wanted to ask me about anything else, if I skimmed over anything, or if you felt like I gave a good breakdown of that.
Yeah, you covered everything. I would say, why have you done so many things at once? So why have you changed?
It wasn't really food.
How did it work? Because obviously that could be a factor in why you're feeling so shit.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't where like I woke up and just went, "This is the change."
I know you've done it, but even within the space of a week, like I think you're very similar to me in terms of how I was last year, because you don't feel shit. You don't actually realize the environment that your body's in. So like you think you can get away with doing like loads, and then it actually oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Like I did it loads, like and you sort of learn from it, from like hindsight afterwards. But yeah, go on then. How did you do it in terms of like what?
So it was more so, like I said, it was a bit of a strange one, because what happened was I pretty much, if I was to break it down, and I think this would be like a good video to go through, weekly videos, that's what I'll say, but almost like a full overview. Going through like my Google Sheets, because it's literally been periods of time where there's absolutely no updates for like a week or 2, and then it'll be a time where like literally 4 changes come in, and I'm a big it's challenging, because from a coaching standpoint, I'd actually rather argue, if I wouldn't know somebody, I quite like the idea of a snowball going down a hill or a mountain and almost just keeping the snowball building momentum, so you don't want that momentum to stop. But I almost know what to look for from like a neurological sense, and then from a physical sense, and like you could argue it's fairly similar, but in reality I like to know what I look for. And I feel like I'd much rather have periods where I'm quite aggressive with the changes, then I hold off and just see how things go. So from like weeks 12 to 10, I made absolutely 0 changes, and my physique got better and better. I'd say from like weeks 10 and a half to like weeks 9 and a half, I was like, right, okay, cool, let's make a few changes, let's see how things go. It was more so as well, like you said, I felt good. Everything was pretty much moving forward in the right directions. And at the same time, if I was just to go off body weight, and it's not going to be really a main driver, but I'm still above 100 kilos. So like, it's not where I'm light. I'm thinking, oh God, I feel pretty frail. My session performance is dropping off. My session performance is far higher now than it was bar pressing pretty much like when it went like literally 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, which is, to be fair, kind of expected. but like I'm not going to progressively get weaker. That's not going to be the main goal. I always find that funny when people are like, I got stronger, and it's all you expected to get weaker. Like it's no one goes into any phase and like, I'm just going to get weaker. That's the goal though. So it was more so just having a look, and I was almost just looking, going, right, well, the first change was literally, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to get it up in front of me, but it was literally just a cardio change of putting it in on the 20 minutes. It's not a lot on my sessions. I didn't have it already in. So I originally had cardio on all rest days, and I had it on just one of my training sessions that wasn't a rest day, and I just put it in on the 2 other sessions that isn't the lower session. So it was total 40 minutes if you think about it. So 20 minutes twice per week, not a grand amount if you think about it. Like you put in 20 minutes of cardio, haven't you, pretty much every day now? So obviously different goals and stuff, but it wasn't where I was like, right,
I'm on a lot of food, like
yeah, but like physically I'm like, that's not that demanding.
It's not, but
and then likewise, no,
you don't realize, like, I mean, I didn't obviously do any cardio, and I remember thinking back now, if I had to do any, I'd have adapted to it if I'd have done it throughout the whole prep. But thinking towards like the latter weeks, like if I'd have had to add in more cardio, then I'd have been like, fucking hell, like because I wasn't doing any, like, but if you're already doing it,
I know what you mean. Yeah, it was already, and to be fair, whenever I've got lean in the past, I've always had cardio in. Like last year, when I did the tidy up, and I dropped 14 kilos in 8 weeks. Obviously, the rate of loss is going to be massively varied to what I'd be after now. But like in reality, I had cardio in literally every day, and I don't find it like it doesn't. I know obviously you say it, and it does work in, like, for example, you don't feel it on a daily basis. It's something that works like in kind of like the mechanisms behind what you actually can infer from like a day-to-day setting. So I probably feel worse now for the changes. I'm not disagreeing with that, but at the same time, like I said, I almost want it where I can say, right, well, I can be quite aggressive, I can hold off, and then I can just see how things go. From like a visual standpoint, it was almost saying like, I'd much rather, I know you were saying 2 weeks to kind of get ready. I'd rather have a period where I can actually have my food a little bit higher. I want to do not a peak week or whatever, but I want to have like the weekend prior with like a decent amount of carbs and just see how I look. So in reality, that's probably 3 weeks I need to be ready. And when we break it down, that's 6 weeks. Like 6 weeks is not a lot of weeks, you know? And I look at it and I think, well, training performance is in a good spot. Body weight is still in a good spot. Mate, I'm eating 3,400 calories still on training days. That's not, if my food was 2,600 calories and on a training day and 2,000 on a non-training day, I could argue and go, fucking all right, slow down. But my food's in a very good spot. Like everything seems to be, if you were to be offered me this position right now, bar me going to the toilet loads, let's say when I started, I'd be saying, yeah, like, because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, when I first started, I thought high 80s, low 90s, to be still sitting above 100 kilos in the condition I'm in. Like we said, I'd say probably 94, maybe 95. I reckon I'll see like a 93 or a 94. I'll probably, the day after the show, be 96 kilos, if I'm honest, like, or the day after the last show. Like, yeah, 125 kilos, that'll be it. Perfect rebound, 30 kilos worth of tissue added. But yeah, it's an interesting one. And like I said, the joys of it are, I'm not experienced enough to really know if this is going to be productive or not. And that's like the beauty of it, where it's the same as what you were going in at. Like we were both saying for you, like, do you reckon we could push a bit harder? Do you reckon you could do this? Do you reckon you could do that? And I remember, like, if you literally, I remember the conversations before your first show, it was, oh yeah, you know, you're ready. The second you finish your show, I'm not lean enough. I need to push harder. You looked your best 6 weeks out, you know? And you were doing high days and like you were doing 2 days back-to-back high days. So there's always going to be inconsistencies in a first prep. There's never going to be a perfect prep. But for now, touch wood, I think I'm in a quite a good spot visually, physically, everything, bar the toilet situation. 4 times I think I mentioned that. So yeah, again, I think that's pretty much answered all. Like I said, we'll see how things go. I think each week now it's going to be more of an in-depth kind of breakdown, because it'll be almost like the mechanisms of how I actually feel and how things are, because you can cruise and then you get to a point and, like, for example, I went for a walk yesterday and like I was so quiet. Like it was noticeable. Like I was like, God, I'm not happy. Like this is such a weird feel. Like, you know, when you're just walking around, you're like, I've got nothing here. Like there's no energy, there's nothing. And it's one of those times where you don't realize till afterwards that you're like, I'll look back at that and go, wow, like what the hell?
I had walks like that. I had one where it was like, I think I told you, it was like raining but it was like I was red hot. So I was like, literally, I went out in a coat. I had to take my coat off. So I was just getting like drenched by the rain, but I was absolutely boiling. Yeah. And then I went freezing, and then I went hot again. And I had to keep sitting down because I felt like I was going to pass out. We were on like a 20-minute walk, me and Shannon. And then we got back home, and we needed to go to Tesco to do the food shop. And I still had more steps to do. So I was like, just go in and get me like a squash. So like a drink of squash with like 2 calories or whatever. And it sorted me out. Like I was sound after it, but mate, like that walk was vile. And it was literally just from obviously dieting. I was probably maybe 2 weeks out or something at that point. And I was just dragging my feet. I remember like just sort of every step I was taking, I was just thinking about the next step. Like that's all I was worrying about was like just take that, which is ridiculous, really.
Yeah, it's mental when you think about it.
But that is like all I was just thinking, just do the next step, just do the next step.
Yeah.
Like, but
the best way I could describe it is like I go with Bear, so my dog, and he'll get a stick, and he puts the stick down, and I'm not joking you, it was the day before last, and I looked at the stick, and I didn't even have the energy to like bend down and pick it up. No chance I'm even doing that while throwing it. There was like, I looked at it, and like my body just went, no, like don't. Right. And it was like, I just looked at him and said, sorry, mate, I can't. And it was like, like, it's weird because that doesn't even apply. Like, I compare it, and I remember, like, you know, when, let's say, I dropped you off at Loughborough or whatever after Rotherham, I'd like drive back and I'd like listen to, I don't know, whatever songs I was listening to, and I was like enjoying my time. That's gone. That doesn't happen anymore. Like, I literally, I either have to listen to a podcast to like just kind of chill out, or I have a song on, but I have no idea what the song is. Like, it's kind of like I'm a bit more
just robotic. Like brain fog, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And Slater was saying about it. Like Slater was saying, he'll be sat in front of his like laptop trying to do work, and he'll realise he's not done anything for like 15 minutes. He's just like,
oh no, that's the strange thing. Like, that's the one thing I thought I'd notice more of an issue with. The only thing I will say is my ability to like do other tasks consciously is awful. So for example, today I was like explaining to someone a macro change and the result of calories, and me talking, like, you know, when you can talk and you can then do the maths in your head. So if you've pulled 100 carb, no, you're not with the maths. Yeah, you know, you've pulled like 25 carb and you pulled like 10 fat. So you're like, right, 190 calories. I can usually say that, and while talking about, and I said to him, I stopped, it was James, and I just went, 1 second, mate. I was like, right, it's 190. I was like, sorry. I said, I can't do all this at the same time. My brain just doesn't work. But when it comes to actual like productivity, mate, I'm spot on. Like, I actually noticed fasted rest days are mint, because I don't eat my first meal till like 7 p.m. by the feel of things, because I push it back. No, I don't. Just so people know, it's around midday. So by the time I've like got on, I've done my cardio, I've done my steps. I say done my steps. I've done like 5,000 steps. I probably do like 2 and a bit hours, 3 hours worth of work before I've had my first meal, and then I'll be sipping on like some caffeinated beverage. Today it was a 3D, no, not a 3D. A yellow rain, which was quite nice. 200 megs of caffeine, so 50 megs more caffeine, bro.
Mate, going to be shredded in the morning. You're going to hold so much fluid when you complete that.
I know, going to be cutting them out soon. No, imagine. But no, so it was literally, I just can fly through, like my productivity's spot on. There's no detriment to that yet. So that's the one benefit. It's more so like external tasks, and training days are, if I'm honest, are more of a challenge. Rest days I really enjoy, because it's like I can just do my work. I've always got something to do in the day, in the sense of like, after I finish work today, it was physio. Friday, it's my haircut. Sunday we'll go for a walk somewhere different, or something will be on or whatever, or we'll do something afterwards. But like on my training days, I'm not really enjoying them as much, because after my sessions I'm battered, and like my training days are just brutal. Like, it's literally get up, cardio, steps, work, training, get in, shower, eat, die, sleep. Like, there's no that evening time, it's awful. But again, it's going to be expected, and it's how it is. How are you, mate? How's training been? I mean, when you're in a gaining phase, mate, there's just not really much to report. It's just like, yeah, sound training's been good. This has been good. Yeah. You back to 200 pounds? You ever going to see a 201, or are you just thinking 200 pounds?
201.75 the other day, was it?
Well, that explains why you're soft, mate. Fair enough.
I'm so soft, yeah. No, I actually feel pretty good. I had a really good session yesterday. I think because it's a bit cooler. Like last week, like although I still had good sessions, like I did struggle. Like everyone did. Obviously, it was fucking boiling. Like I was drenched like through the sessions, and I was finishing like I was ready to just pass out. Like I felt pretty shit, and obviously like that's relatively normal anyway. But when it's sort of exaggerated by it being 10 degrees hotter than it usually is, like with no aircon in the gyms that we train at, like, it was a bit brutal. And especially like I'm not going to make it like any excuses, obviously, but being heavier for me, like you've been fine. Like obviously it's been hot, but you've been like ready to do. And I'm there like fat eating donuts, struggling. So maybe I need to stop with the pre-workout and post-workout cookies. But no, I'm actually feeling pretty good. Like I'm relatively happy with condition at this body weight. I did that video the other day, sort of like 9 months progress in the off season, which I didn't really realize it had been that long since I competed. Like when I said it in the video, I was like, 9 months. I was like, is that right? Like, it doesn't feel like that long. But then also like thinking back, it's like anything. When you think of something, you think, oh, it feels like it was only like a few weeks ago. But then when you actually break it down and think of all the things that have happened, it feels like ages ago. So
mate, we're training in progress. Like,
yeah, I know.
If you think about it, like we've gone through the training sessions at the private facility. Then we trained at Evo, you know, for that month with the Panata chest supported T-bar in for like a month. Then we were at home. Then we were like, mate, it's been a mental kind of 9 months, because it doesn't feel like 9 months ago since you competed. That's for sure. But time does fly. But a lot has happened, you know.
So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Feeling good. Feeling better this week. No issues anymore. Digestion's back to where it needs to be. Generally feeling a pretty good routine. Been doing cardio every morning now for the past like 2 weeks. Just like 20 minutes, low intensity on a rest day, and like moderate intensity. Sorry, low intensity on a training day, moderate intensity on a rest day.
What is that for you, mate? Have you got your heart rate in a set zone?
I generally aim it. If I logged it on my Aura ring, because I broke my Apple Watch ages ago, didn't I? If I logged it on my Aura ring, I think it's a little bit higher than what it says on the bike. On the bike, it ends up being about 110 for the low intensity, and then about 125 or so on the moderate intensity. I think it'd probably be a little bit closer to maybe like 120 and 130 or so if I did it with an Apple Watch. Generally, when I used to use my Apple Watch, it always logged it as slightly more than on the bike. But yeah, that's generally been doing me good. My blood pressure's come down a little bit because I was keeping an eye on that. Still not great. Well, it's not bad, but it's not where I want it to be. But it's a lot better than it was. Been doing like my fasted blood glucose. I just do it once a week, and that's been getting a little bit better just from getting a little bit healthier. And I feel a little bit better for it. Like, not that I've felt bad before, but I think whether it's even if it's just sort of a placebo effect of seeing numbers go down on sort of those kind of scales and being like, oh, you know, I'm getting fitter, I'm getting healthier. But either way, I feel a little bit better. And just I think my routine at the minute, my routine feels better by like getting up and doing something productive. Because like before, I would get up and I would like generally chill for the first sort of 10-15 minutes. Like get up, get changed, get ready like for the day, come upstairs, like rehydrate, make a coffee, and then I'd just sit and like watch YouTube videos until I was ready to get working. And like some mornings I was just being like a bit lazy, and I'd be there like watching like 20-minute video, and I'd be like, what am I doing? Like, I'm ready to work. So now like I'll get up, I'll come upstairs and rehydrate and get straight on with cardio. Then I'll prep all my meals for the day, so that's really easy. Because before I wasn't doing that. I only had my cream of rice prepped. So now all my meals are prepped, and like, I'll do my pre and my intra first thing. So like everything's ready. And then I'll have meal one while I watch a video, and then I'll smash through work. And often now, like when I'm watching a video, like I might not even watch a video. I'll probably have like my first check-in, listening to it and stuff. So I feel a lot more productive just from like minor changes. Not that I wasn't getting work done or anything, but I just felt like I'd have like, let's say 6 or 7 check-ins. And before, like, I remember like when I'd get up and I'd smash through them and I'd be done by like 10. And then I'd have like the rest of the morning to like do content or get back to applications or whatever. And then I got into a routine where I was like letting 6-7 check-ins take up my whole morning when they didn't really need to. It's
easily can be
done. Yeah, so I feel like now
be a bit slack in between meals. You're watching a video and I'll watch the end of this part, and I agree. Now. Yeah, like before, I started my dis, so like, you know, before those like that couple of months, it was awful. Like on my laptop, that killed my laptop. I should mention my Mac died. Yeah, finally, it's over there actually. I've got a new one. Yeah, my Mac died. Rest in peace. About 2.5 years, but it literally in 2.5 years, I don't think any Mac has ever been rinsed as much as that. So I'm surprised it lasted as long. But yeah, I was the same. Before that period, it was where like I'd have, let's say before we trained, I might have 6 check-ins. And I'm getting up at, let's say, 8, and by the time I'm getting on with work, it's like I've made all my meals, it might be 10, and it's like, oh, and why am I getting started at work at 10? You know, like now I have, by 10 o'clock, I've probably got 4 check-ins done, my cardio, my steps, everything nailed, and it's like, right, well, I'm in a far better routine. And it's funny that you touched on the like the physical kind of, like, I sound like JP, but the fitness element. Like it's good to it's a strange one. Like it's one, because I'm like 20 pounds heavier than you right now, but like, mate, you'll see when I'm training, I can do sets really quickly now, like to the point where like I'll do a set and I'll be like, right, I'm ready to go again. And it's quite a nice feel. Like physically, I like how I feel when I do more cardio. I remember I do like a set of 10 during the first lockdown, not first lockdown, the last lockdown, and I'd be like blowing for ages. And it's like, it's cool because I was strong in like lower rep ranges, but like I gas out on anything high rep work, and like physically just talking, like I feel so much better now. That's the weird thing that's like that cardio kind of brings. So yeah, I think you're in probably a better spot if you've got all the variables and markers that you control and they're coming down. I mean, your body weight's pretty much sitting into a similar position. Food's not silly high, like composition's not like out of line. Like I think, again, if you were to be offered where you are now 9 months later, I think you're in a very good position to grow. You just need to make sure that I'm not beating you on the side attack this week. So yeah, that would be good. Because I'm coming.
You'll just
coming down. I will. Literally, mate, that's what I thought. Imagine at the bottom. I'm definitely not going to be wearing white boxes again.
We're going to get bullied off it anyway, like we did last week.
That's for sure. Yeah, we got in a bit of a tussle about the cyber attack. We won't go into too much detail, but we'll leave you with the classic line of a guy coming up to me saying, "Do you think you're fucking funny?" That's what that's the line is. So yeah, cyber attack. That was it. Right. Do you want to get into the questions, mate? I only got a few this week. If I'm honest.
I didn't get many, mate.
Yeah, we seem to have like weeks where, like, guys, can we be a bit more consistent with the questions, please? We'll have a week where both me and Finn get asked like 12 to 15 questions. And then we'll have a week where we get asked like 3 or 4. Like, I think I've got like maybe 6. And I haven't even really looked through them. So and 6 basically means there's only about 3, because half of them would be crap.
I think I've got 3 good ones.
Yeah. Right.
You can go first.
We'll have a look. Right. So, GB Fitness. This is Gulliver. Fitness 17. Yeah. Mate, my mum said the same things that. Yeah, she knew it. I'm clearly too young. I'm too young. Tips for conventional deadlifts with long femurs, bar start position, etc. Thanks.
It's hard to really give you
hard to say without seeing.
Yeah, without visualizing.
We'd have to get a video of them doing it.
We could do that. We could do that at some point. But I would generally say, obviously, he's your client, isn't he? So film it, send it to Reece.
He's not yet. He will be towards the. Yeah, I think he's. I think he'll be signing up towards the latter end of either this month or next. I'm not 100% sure, but if he is, spot on. If not, like we'll answer like he's going to be. So yeah, this is one thing I would actually recommend. This is why video feedback and video analysis is key in a coaching process, because you can literally assess and go, right, put the bar here, move this, change that.
Yeah, there's so many things that like clients will cover in check-ins, or they'll drop me a message saying, "Mate, I'm struggling with this." I'm like, film it. Like, how do you expect me to know? Like, or they'll say, "This hurts my shoulder," and I'm like, film it. I guarantee that your form's not great. Like, so yeah, that's massively important. And like watching someone else do it, especially if you're not really that well educated on it, or on anatomy or on movement patterns, like you can watch someone else do it all day long, but if you don't actually know how to improve it yourself, like it's not really going to be beneficial. So yeah, I would probably say, in terms of like a bit of a vague answer, like generally you're going to want the bar, like let's say starting, above the laces, maybe the middle to bottom of the laces of your shoe. You're going to want to be obviously letting the knees travel over the bar on a conventional deadlift at the start of the rep. Generally you want like your shoulder blades, like let's say the mid to bottom of your shoulder blades over the bar. You could film it from the side, obviously, and watch it back yourself, even just the setup. You don't have to do a set. Just watch the setup. Think to like pack your lats, keep your head fixed in line with your torso, and then go from there. But yeah, it's very hard to say. And especially when you're saying like, oh, I've got really long femurs, like, have you actually, or is that just something? Because a lot of the time people will be like, oh, I can't do this because I'm tall, or I can't do this because I'm small, or I've got my levers are, you know, let's say not optimal for a given exercise, which sometimes can be true, but a lot of the time is a bit of an easy way out. But yeah, you could potentially use a block. Like if someone is really, really struggling to, let's say, keep their back tight, especially like the lumbar spine tight on a hinge, then often starting from a block wouldn't be a bad idea. It might just be a case that you need to improve like your hip mobility or your lower back mobility, but there's so many variables that it's almost impossible to give you some tips. Like obviously I gave some vague ones there, but it's very difficult to give any more detail than that.
Yeah, I'd agree. And also at the same time, like, it doesn't have to be. The one issue is a lot of individuals will do this, and I don't want him to take this too literally. But like, for example, break down why you deadlift. Do you have to deadlift? You know, you could easily do a variant of a hip hinge. Could you do an SLDL? Maybe not. But for example, like, I suit a stiff leg deadlift far greater than I do a regular deadlift. I always was told when I deadlifted when I was a young chap, like, your knee drive, your leg drive is appalling. So I was like, right, well now I just stiff leg and it's not where I need that knee drive, and my knee like travel is relative to my own mechanics. Likewise, an RDL suits me a lot better than probably a regular deadlift. So I'd almost be asking, like, why are you hip hinging? Unless you want to build the deadlift up, then you can always do variants, and there will always be variants. And I highly recommend what Finn said about the putting the blocks under, limiting range of motion. You don't have to be married to touching the floor or utilising bumper plates as such. But additionally to that point, the one problem is a lot of people who are taller get into this kind of mental state where if you're over 6'2", 6'3", you can't deadlift. When in reality, you can. It's just like, it's a bit of a challenging movement for some. And in reality, you probably haven't spent enough time like learning it. We were saying about my squatting. My squatting patterns like are pretty dire. But that's, firstly, mechanically, it's not a super, like, you're far better suited to a squat movement than I am. But I've never spent time doing 60 kilo barbell squat, then 100 kilo barbell squat, or doing full range hacks with pauses at the bottom with no momentum, staying tight. Like, I haven't put the time in on certain movement patterns. So for me to say, you know what, I'm pretty shit at squatting, it's a result of me, not anybody else. I feel like if you were to ask me that 3 years ago, I'd just go, nah, I'm just shit at hack squats.
A year ago, you used to say that all the time. And like, I used to say, like, you're not, like, it's just that you haven't practiced enough or spent enough time there. Yeah. It's the same, like, with anything. Like, you can say, oh, you know, I've just got shit arms, or I've just got shit calves. And it's like, well, if you have that mentality, then you go into, like, I have shit calves, but I don't go around moaning about it. Like, I try and do something about it and actually put the effort in to grow them. Like, I can say I haven't done enough on my calves for them to be a good body part, so they're not. As simple as that. Like, if you're not putting the work in on a movement, what do you expect? It's not going to be a strong body part. Yes, you can have some areas that are going to grow easier than others, and genetically are in a better position than others. But still, like, if you're not putting the work in on those weaker areas, like, they're only going to be worse. So very similar to that. Like, don't just, because there's an easy excuse, don't just use that as an easy way out. Actually put the work in beforehand. If you've spent 5 years, you know, working on, let's say, a squat, or working on a deadlift, or working on your calves or whatever, and they're still not progressing, like, first of all, I would question, what have you actually been doing? You know, are you actually working on them, or are you just sort of pissing about? But if you've been doing absolutely everything in your power to do something for, let's say, you know, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, and it's still not improving, then maybe you can be like, oh, you know, this is a weak area that's, you know, genetically weak or whatever it may be. But I think a lot of the time, you know, people just keep doing what they're doing and then question why it's not changing. It's like, well, you know, you keep doing the same thing and you're expecting a different result.
Definition of insanity. Get it in there. That's what it is.
I knew you were going to say it, so I left it for you.
Yeah, I was laughing. I was like, he's literally going word for word here.
That's class. I left you to it.
Yeah, but no, I agree. Like, if you were look, mate, how many sets do you reckon you've done of arms in comparison to calves?
Oh, mate.
It's absolutely absurd. Like, you'll get people who do like, oh, mate, my calves won't grow, but they do 2 working sets at the end of each, like 2 lower sessions. So you're doing 4 sets per week. Like, why don't you try and do 10 sets, you know? And they're like, oh, no, it's boring. And I'm like, oh, there you go.
mate, you see how most people train carbs. Like, mate, I'd
Oh
say
yeah,
I can't say anything, but I train them well, and I just haven't done it for enough time yet.
Yeah.
Like,
the only time my calves ever grew, I was training them like 4 to 5 times a week. It was when I was like 16 to 18. I did them literally like after like the end of each session, on my lower sessions at the start, and I just kind of did mixed rep ranges. Sometimes I went like for like a couple of heavy loading sets. If they were at the latter end of the session, I'd do a lot of intensifiers. I'd do drop sets. I'd be pausing in the stretches. Only times my calves ever really noticeably grew, and it was because the frequency and overall weekly volume was there. And like, my calves aren't a bad, like, they're not weak. My calves aren't amazing. They're not. You wouldn't look at my calves and go, "Oh my god, he's got amazing calves." But my calves aren't a weak calf.
That guy is in progress.
Mate, the guy in progress work said my calves were like. He looked at me and got such good calves, and I just looked at him and went, what? Like, that was basically I'll say it for people that don't, like, because we skimmed over that. I think it's quite natural, like, you'll get compliments on your physique when you train, like, and I got a compliment once when I was stood in the reception of Progress Works, and someone just looks at me and he goes, "Oh mate, you look fantastic," and I was like, "Oh cheers mate, thanks," like, just being nice. And he goes, "Yeah, your calves are so good," and I just started laughing, and I was like, "Mate, they're not." Like, just, and he was like, no, he was like, "Dude, your calves are great," and I was like, they're not really, mate, like, cheers, but they're not. Like, it was such a weird, like, you know,
yesterday I was walking back from training, and I've got a new, like, next door neighbour in the flats here, and he was sat outside. He was sat outside having a cigarette, and he was like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Have you been training? Like, how much do you bench, squat?" I was like, because I had my shorts on. I was like, "I don't squat, mate." And he was like asking me about training and that. And I was telling him. He said he's going to get. I told him, because obviously I was like, Pure Gym's there. I was like, "Oh yeah, we used to work at Pure Gym, did it?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about
I'm a coach.
I'm thinking about getting a PT." Because I told him, like, what I do for a living. He's like, "I'm thinking about getting a PT, like, in person, because I need, like, help in person." And I was like, "Yeah, mate, great, go for it." I was like, "But you'll struggle in that gym." I was like, "I'll be honest with you." I was like, "Said the PT industry is not great." I was like, "And especially in that gym," I was like, "Let me know if you're going to go. I'll try and advise someone." I was like, "But probably better off, like, you know, going on your own, or I'll give you some tips." Like, he was like, I don't really want to do online. Like, I want someone in person." I was like, "You'll struggle, mate." Like, without being like a dick to the people, but it's true. Like, I'm not going to recommend someone in that gym, like, realistically.
Yeah.
Most gyms, it'd be hard.
Oh yeah, the vast majority of people that actually know stuff are usually working online. You know, like, that's like.
Yeah, I think
It will be good. There's good PTs.
Yeah,
there's
definitely still a lot of good PTs about. I definitely think there are, but it's rare to find them
in a pure.
Often, yeah, in a pure gym, and like I say, often if they are good, they probably want to. Not always, but a lot of the time they want to go online.
Just because their time availability and how many clients you can work with, there's further benefits. But yeah, no, it makes sense. Right, do you want to go through your questions, mate?
Okay.
I will say, guys, the fantastic listeners of the podcast, Sanaya bought me a Pepsi Max raspberry. First time. I think, did I have one of these at yours?
Mate, you've had that loads of times at mine.
Yeah, mate, I thought it was cherry though. So this is the first time I've consciously thought it was raspberry. I will say, I think it's an elite drink, mate. Very nice.
It is. I've had it for years.
Yeah, very good. I didn't know they had. They
way behind, mate. Way behind. And if it's a bit of a hotter day and you want something a little bit more refreshing, Pepsi Max Lime is your go-to.
Okay, cheers. Thanks for that, mate.
It's all right, mate. And also, if you want some bowling tips, just let me know.
Yeah, going bowling after this. Gonna beat a 140.
You'll get beat.
I know. I probably will do, mate.
Right. Come on. Perrin asked us. I mean, to be fair, I don't really want to answer Perrin's question because he's put us so far down on his priorities.
Yeah, we thought we were third, and now we're like 12th.
We're top 3. We're going to be like 47th guest on his podcast. So yeah, a bit disappointed.
He asked me. He messaged me last night saying, he said, "You're doing a podcast tomorrow. I've already got a question ready. #fanboy." And he clearly, mate, because you put your question box up earlier, he couldn't even wait. He just goes, "That's it.
Can't wait."
Yeah, I can't wait for the podcast.
So he put biggest tips for first-time competitors.
Oh,
I mean,
mate,
you haven't competed.
I can't answer, so I'm going to take myself out of this one. I'm taking myself back. Thanks for the question, Perry.
I think
no,
you
yeah,
can answer, like, because
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you could, but
I'm not your usual first-time competitor. Like, for someone who's not competed before, I'm a bit of an anomaly with my experience of training, and then likewise getting lean. And
most people, if they're in your situation, would have competed when they were like 18.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think I'm very rare in that degree. But yeah, you go first, mate, because you'll be the one who can answer to a better degree officially, even though I've trained for longer. Probably have more diets in the books. Like, the only thing you've got on me
not
is
competed, like, it's a little bit different. Mate, like the actual competition side of things, like you've dieted and everything, but the actual competing side of things. There's loads. Like, I can't really think of, I'm not going to do an order, but there's loads of stuff. So the first one would be, don't rush into it. Like, make sure you've actually got enough muscle. Like, Perrin's got a good amount of muscle. Like, I'm not saying himself, but like for most individuals, like, don't rush, because more often than not, you'll have a lot less muscle than you actually think when you actually get lean. Practice posing, like your life depends on it. Like, literally day in, day out, you know, round after round after round after round. Like, I've got Slater on 8 rounds a day. I've got Sonny on 6 rounds a day. And the only reason Sonny's not on more is because he's not as close to his show yet. And it's a tool of expenditure as well. But just practice, literally, like, I should have practiced more. I wish I'd have practiced more in terms of just getting better at it and in terms of my posing fitness. You don't want to come off stage and look back at your video and be like, oh, my posing wasn't great. Or I could have been better on that pose. I could have been better on that pose. Like, that was one thing that really pissed me off. Like, I came back off stage. I watched the video back and I was like, that pose could have been better. That pose could have been better.
What pose was it? Was it the front relax?
I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I thought it was the front relax. Everything else you weren't too disheartened.
So that night, like, after I watched it back, I was posing in the mirror, improving my poses. Like, because I just want it so bad. But you know what I mean? Like, little things like that. Like, you don't want to be in that situation. The only reason I was in that situation was because, one, I wouldn't say I didn't practice enough, because I did. I wasn't analytical enough. So you can practice as much as you like, but if you're practicing shit poses, it doesn't matter. So you've got to make sure that you're perfecting the poses and practicing the poses once they're perfected, and then improving your fitness in the poses. Don't stress. Like, stress is going to be a massive, massive factor when it comes to whether or not your body is in a good position to actually mobilize body fat. If you're stressed all the time, whether it be due to work or relationships or because of the prep, then you're just going to end up sort of being in a worse position and showing sort of you at 60%, 70% of your best, which obviously we don't want. So make sure that you're planning ahead everything. Make sure that you're booking the hotel pretty early. Make sure that you're booking the tan early. Make sure that you're sorting out your routine early. Don't leave things to the last minute. Don't be surrounding yourself with people that are going to stress you out. You know, don't be generally sort of allowing external variables to creep in. That's the same with any time, really. That's not necessarily just a prep, but obviously it's heightened even more so during a prep. There's going to be loads more things. Book the shows early enough. Get your, like, whether you're doing physique or bodybuilding or classic, get your trunks early enough. Like, all those kind of things. Don't leave things to the last minute, because it's just going to cause stress. And don't change every variable at once, because you'll just shit yourself.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I think a few more of this. Like, make sure you know what class you'll be going into and what the benefits are and where you actually fit. Get good guidance, whether that's through a coach or whether that's through someone that you trust, or whether that's through your own kind of time in the trenches if you're experienced enough to say. I definitely would recommend that. I also think as well, making sure you've dieted in the past. That's going to kind of come in good synergy with what we mentioned at the start, or what Finn mentioned at the start, being like, don't just rush into it. Like, I've picked up so many little eating tendencies and, in a sense, like eating disorders. And I hate how people think that's a bad thing. Like, you are going to pick up eating disorders and eating tendencies that are not exactly healthy when you're prolonging a deficit. And, like, for example, I noticed, bless her, one of my ex-girlfriends got the worst version of me. when she used to sit down next to me, or like literally next to me. I'd sit on the floor, she'd sit on my bed with her legs like neck touching me, and I'd be like moving, and she'd like move intentionally nearer to me, and I must have shouted at her about 10 times, and just get away from me. I don't want anyone near me when I'm eating. And like, I know that when I diet, when I'm eating, just leave me alone, don't talk to me. Little things like that, knowing how you respond. Everyone's like, if you've never dieted and you've never got overly lean, you do not know how you're going to respond. You might freak out, you might be really antisocial, you might be potentially a little bit more aggressive. Whatever it's going to be, there's going to be things that you'll pick up on when you're in a prolonged fat loss period. And like, just to rush into a show and you've trained for a year or 2 years, it's like you've not even dieted. Like, you need to kind of go through the understandings of how your body works, how you mentally work. Like, each sign I'm getting, bar me going to the toilet currently, is things that I've experienced before, and I'm like, okay, this is normal. Like, I feel like this is how I should feel at this point. Or, oh, cool, this is how I felt this time. And I can kind of go off previous experiences. And that's just through experience. And obviously, for a first-time competitor, it might not, for Perrin, for example, it's probably not in best interest for him to get mind-blowingly peeled if he's going to be competing next year or whatever. But at least run fat loss phases and understand what your body can get away with, where your food is, where your metabolic rate is, on a, like, say, do you need this amount of cardio? Obviously, it's going to be dependent because you're going to have more muscle when you compete if you were to prolong it. But just knowing that baseline level of information is way more imperative, in my opinion, than working with the best coach or having the best protocol in mind, because in a sense, you can plan perfectly. You can have everything written out. But the one thing I think a lot of people forget about as a prep or in a prep is it's so reactionary, or you have to be so reactionary, you know. It was like I was being asked, like, let's say when I started, oh, what's the plan for this? What's the plan for that? When it came to the assistant side of things, what's your cycle going to be? What are you going to do for this? And it was like every single time my answer was, it'd be naive of me to say or plan what I'm going to do. Like, I know what tools are at my disposal: cardio, lipolytics, assistance, everything, nutrition, training. Why would I be planning what I'm going to do 10 weeks down the line? I don't even know how I'm going to be in 4 weeks, 6 weeks. So it's a bit of a challenge to almost go in and know that, because a first-time competitor, you will be tasked, but trying to find that good balance and almost go in with the most amount, not of boxes ticked, but the most amount of knowledge kind of from your own feedback systems in the past is probably quite imperative. So to break it down, basics, as Finn mentioned, you can go into a few more intricacies, but there's so much to cover. And at the same time, I think it often can be overthought. And that's why the vast majority of individuals compete with a coach. Like, it makes sense. Give the stress over to someone else.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Don't put too much pressure on it. Like, obviously, if you have a coach, then you can put it onto them. But even if you coach yourself, like, enjoy it. Like, don't be putting so much pressure on it like it is the be all and end all if you win, or if you don't win, you know, it's, you know, you're never going to compete again or anything like that. Like, do it because you want to do it for the right reasons, you know, actually because you enjoy bodybuilding and the process of it, and you just want to sort of reveal your hard work at the end of it. You know, don't do it because it's fashionable or it's cool or it's good for business or anything like that, because that will likely result in probably you not enjoying it and a poorer result at the end of things.
Yeah, spot on. Right. Going to one of my questions. Let's have a look. Rowan Young, he asked 2 questions actually. When's best to train abs on a pull push lower split? Asking to settle a debate. You know, one of these debates, like, yo man, when do you train abs? So
I would generally place them as far away from movements that are going to be dependent on your abdominal bracing, I would say. So let's say your main movement, like in your weekly split, is like, or your main movement that is dependent on bracing is a deadlift or a hack squat, let's say, then I would generally try and place them away from those. In terms of, let's say you have a pull push leg split, I wouldn't really recommend doing abs before the pull day or before the leg day. So I would actually do them at the end of those sessions, which might sound weird because I'm saying do them away from those, but I mean do them away from them in terms of not doing them beforehand. So yeah. I like doing abs at the end of pull and at the end of legs, because I've done my main work, my main compound work that is dependent on my abdominals working and my core bracing. So I'm not going to be fatiguing my abs and generally, like, let's say, potentially creating some form of soreness and some DOMs within my midsection before going into like a big movement. Whereas with your pressing, like, yeah, you got a brace, of course you have, but you've got more stability through the machine that you're on, the bench behind you. You still have to brace, but it's nowhere near to the extent that you would rely on it on a deadlift or a hinge variation or a squat variation. So yeah, I like abs at the end of pull days and at the end of lower days. I also like it from a standpoint that you've been doing a lot of movements that are incorporating spinal extension. So if you think about it, doing a hinge is you're in spinal extension, doing a squat, doing even like leg extensions and hamstring curls, you're constantly in spinal extension, which is when your abs are going to be in their lengthened position, and your lower back and your mid back can get quite tight from being in that position constantly. So you could then do latter in the session. You could do some abdominal work, which is going to train through spinal flexion, and kind of, if you think of it as there's not only the benefit of training your abs, but then you've also got the secondary benefit of generally sort of think of it as almost lengthening and stretching out your lower back, if you think of it like that, because you're going into that flex position, which I find works well just in terms of recovery on that area. So like hanging leg raises or ab mat crunches, or even just like cable ab crunch or ab crunch machine. Hanging leg raises work well, just because you also then get the benefit of a stretch after like a pull day, let's say, when you've been doing a lot of back work. You could also do them on rest days. Like I have clients who do them on rest days, just works well for them. And often as well, what I would say is, realistically, if you train abs pretty often, pretty frequently at a good level of intensity, and you're pretty accurate with them, they're not going to be sore, like, unless you did something massively different. So let's say you trained abs like every third day, and then all of a sudden you had to change them to a rest day before pull. It's not going to take away really from your deadlift. Like, it would only take away if you did something drastically different. So yeah, again, that's I've covered that in quite a bit of detail, but realistically, like, probably isn't going to matter that much. It's a very minor detail.
What do you think about hanging off a cable and then getting someone to punch your abs? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's very beneficial, mate. When we look at the research in regards to muscle damage, that's the best thing you can do.
Can't really top it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, punching muscles is the best thing you can do for hypertrophy. I don't know why people don't talk about it more.
We talk about muscle protein breakdown and then overall
like a taboo subject for some reason. I don't know why people.
Basically, you want one of those, those hats that you can sip on. So you want to be sipping on EAs, so you're going to be spiking MPS, and then you're going to be going through actual breakdown at the same time. And because the EAs are going into your stomach, it's going to be localized in the area, and therefore you can almost mix that actually with a sub-Q injection at the same time. So in between every round, just a quick jab of EAs to the area, and mix that with a bit of L-carnitine. Bioavailability is pretty poor of L-carnitine, so you want to actually inject it sub-Q. Fantastic synergy. Fat loss potential is ridiculous, if I'm honest. And then likewise, actual muscle growth is absurd. So if you want the best abs, you can do what Finn says, or you can do the latter. I'd be favouring the latter. Time efficiency.
You don't even train abs.
I know. I need to. But
any lower abs.
Yeah, my lower abs don't exist. So
that's exactly what we were speaking about earlier. Oh, no, I don't have lower abs.
I genetically, I do not have lower abs. I've been blessed with 10 out of 10 obliques, but my lower abs are absolutely, I sacrificed my lower abs for very good obliques. It was a shame. So yeah. Right, your question, mate.
What is it? I got a question from my client, Luke. He's a doctor, and he asked us, will you have the vaccine?
Oh, have you had it yet?
No.
I thought you would have, mate. I thought you would have sneakily got it without telling me. I know you mentioned it a few times. So we've had a few conversations like this in person, and I am not anti-vax. I'm not pro-vax. I'm not really for anything.
Like you told me.
I'm so anti. It's such a scam. No. If I'm honest, I look at this and I think, am I in the current circuit of individuals who are at risk of getting COVID and potentially, let's say, dying of it, or having like a bad response and being unable to kind of perform day-to-day tasks? Right now, fortunately, I'm not in that zone. My health is in a good position, and therefore I would be questioning like the efficacy of why I would need a vaccine for something that isn't going to put me in the side of like not the side effect profile that's going to be detrimental, that it could, let's just be frank, like it could be damaging, or it could, like, let's say, kill me or whatever. So without me being in that risk group, I personally would be favouring, unless my life quality is going to come down, e.g. you can't go to the cinema, you can't go to watch football, you can't go to on a holiday, whatever it's going to be, I personally won't be signing myself up for it. If I got a text saying this is your day, come get it, I probably would, just because it'd be like, right, we're all going to have to get it eventually, but I'm not going to be actively calling up or going somewhere to get it myself, especially when I'm not in that percentage of like risk. If I was 100%, and I look at the studies, like I don't look enough, so if I'm honest, but by the looks of things, it seems to work from a hospitalization standpoint. I think, I'm guessing your client would agree. And there's definitely going to be benefits for the individuals in the zones that's going to be like COVID's a risk for, but I'm not in that risk factor. So therefore, that's pretty much my thought process regarding it.
I agree. Like, there's a few reasons that I haven't had it yet. I'm not sort of saying I'll never have it. I'm so against it, because that's not the case. But I think I saw an analogy where it was like, we're sort of, everybody's running all the red lights, shitting themselves, sort of speeding and running every red light to try and get it sorted. When realistically that's not a good idea. To get from A to B, you wouldn't just smash through every red light if you were driving somewhere. Like, you take your time so you don't crash, and etc. So for me, like, obviously the fact that there's been no real long-term testing on it, would I put anything else in my body that there's been no long-term testing on? Like, I wouldn't. We're both quite sort of conscious about what we put in our body. Like, we want to know what we're doing to ourselves. So I wouldn't personally have enough knowledge on it, and I don't think there's enough knowledge anywhere in terms of the actual long-term
testing.
Yeah, exactly. So
something to have been fast-tracked. Like,
yeah,
there's not
one is a reason that sort of puts me off a little bit, especially in terms of getting it as quick as possible because I'm told to. I also don't like the fact that we're told to do it. Like, if it was a case of, right, it is your complete choice, there'd be more chance of me getting it. Like, and that's not me being like, oh, I don't want to be told what to do, but I just don't think that it's, in terms of our human rights, I don't think it's really correct for us to be told whether or not we can go to a nightclub if we don't have one, or we can go to a football game, or we can go on holiday. Like, I get it more so with traveling abroad. Like, I do get that in terms of, like, obviously when I've been to India and stuff, I've had to get like the malaria vaccine and things like that. I get that. But I also think, that malaria has been around for years. There's a lot more sort of research around that with long-term trials, etc. But yeah, like you said, for people like under the age of, I think it's like 35, the survival rate's like 99% or more, I believe. So again, like, and also I don't really socialize with many people over 35. Like, the only real people I socialize with are you and Shannon. Like, I don't really see anyone else. I see my family very rarely. And the only people above 35 are my mum and dad that I actually see, and they're both double vaccinated now as well. So I wouldn't be worrying too much about sort of the people that I spend my time with. And just generally, I think, forcing people into doing it isn't the right way to actually get people to do it. Like, sort of giving, like, not so much incentives, is it? But it kind of is, saying like, you can't do this. It's restrictions on people for it. So I just don't agree with that. That sort of, from sort of just a humanity standpoint, I don't think that's right. So
it's bad for humanity. From humanity, I'm just not a fan.
It's just my
I'm with humanity.
I think I have a lot of time.
I think it's a fair opinion. Like, it's not like, at the end of the day, everyone's allowed how they think about it. I agree completely. Without the long-term studies and backing, it makes it. I just think it's a bit silly at times if you're not within the risk factor. Like, it's not worth it, in my opinion. However, if it's going to impact, a lot of other variables, just go for it. But I mean, I'm not going to be rushing. I know you won't be. And like, the annoying thing is, I think the one thing that COVID's created is almost like a bit of a cult following between, like, who's obeying the rules, who's not, who's getting the vaccine, who's not. And it's not even like, I really dislike that. It's the one thing that's annoying. It's become very mob mentality. You have to do this, you have to do that. I just think in essence, like, just do what you please. You can choose.
I'm not against anybody for doing it. Like, I'm not gonna argue with anybody or anything like that. I completely respect people who are doing it and who aren't. Like, I think there's obviously reasons behind both sort of sides of the story, but I do think that it's getting a bit old now. Like, people sort of discussing it, and like, I know people that have properly like had fallouts with families about it and stuff like that. Like, it is a little bit, in my opinion anyway, it's a little bit excessive. Like, when you look at all the numbers and if you compare it to the flu, like 3 years ago, would you have been telling me you need to have the flu jab, otherwise you can't do this or do that? Like, I know obviously COVID is different because it's new and we don't know about it. Obviously, it's sort of taken the world by storm a bit, but you know, I wouldn't have got the flu vaccine.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's very
scared of needles. I'm just scared.
Not anymore, mate. You love them. Yeah,
scared of them.
You had them in your had them in your
yeah, twice actually today. So yeah, it was Aaron's were more enjoyable. That's what I'd say. Anyway, yeah, we'll do one more question, mate, to conclude. If you've got one more, whatever, we'll just go through them. I got asked by her Instagram is Charles Parsons, but it's like Charlotte. It's tailored by Tom's missus, if I'm not mistaken. So thanks, Tom, for getting I think it is Charlotte into the podcast. She's asked her first question, so I appreciate the question. How did you learn to switch off to an extent from training? I'll be blank. I don't. I struggle. I definitely struggle. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, like, no, it's not. It's fortunate, but at the same time, there is that unfortunate degree where my life is revolved around training. Like, my work is training. My main hobby is training. It's enjoyable. Like, for example, on Saturday, after we trained, we had that was a really nice Saturday, mate. I will actually
absolutely annihilated at bowling. Was that good for you?
Bowling. Enjoy that? Finn had a Five Guys. I had a Pepsi and my yogurt. And then we went to the cinema afterwards, and like little things like that switching off. But in between that, we went and sat in the car. We did WhatsApps for about 20 or 30 minutes. We did WhatsApps before we had our post-workout meal. Like, everything that we do, it's almost like, right, we need to do this.
Doing WhatsApp on the way home, I bet, as well. I was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was. Yeah. Like, if I'm in the car, it's not where I'm like sat listening to music. If it's like, I've not been on my phone for 2 hours during the cinema. So it is challenging, but focusing on like other things. Like, for example, after this, I'm going to go bowling. And I'll, like, when Liverpool are playing and season's on, that's something I make time for. Try my best to almost kind of switch off to the best of my ability, but at the same time, like, I don't really get too burnt out on it. Like, I love my job in the sense of coaching. I wouldn't swap that for anything. I absolutely love it to bits. There's times where it can get on top of you. That's for sure. Like, I think me and Finn could both agree, like, you have a few new startups, you have loads of WhatsApps. It is quite daunting, but it's really enjoyable. And I love training. That will never change. I don't think I'll ever go into a gym session and be like, oh, you know what? I just don't want to do this. Like, 10 years from now, I'll still be training. I will still be training. You know what I mean? Like, it's not where there's any doubt, really. So, yeah, to switch off, like, fortunately, in a sense, Finn lives with Shannon, so Sundays, like, you usually will go and chill and do something different. But like, in the week, like, it's how you are. Like, even on Sundays, it's how you are. It's not like you don't do anything. It's just more so a chilled out day, you know? So yeah, you can switch off in a few different kind of like ways, but it's challenging, that's for sure. But it's lucky that we're in this position. That's what we can focus on.
But I would say that's more. I don't know if she's tailoring it to us.
Oh, that was good. That was very good.
I don't know if she's tailoring it to our jobs and us, or whether she's literally just saying, like, what would you recommend to switch off from training? Mm-hmm. And if she is, then I would generally say, you want to switch. You want to flick the switch to your parasympathetic state post workout through
utilization of ashwagandha.
Things like, I wouldn't even go into that bit. I would literally say, like, breathing, like, focus on your breathing, calm yourself down, listen to some like relaxing music. If you drive to the gym, when you drive home, put some like chilled out music on, focus on your breathing. Then you can take things like ashwagandha, magnesium. You can help in terms of sort of getting yourself into a more of a relaxed state. And then obviously you'd be in a better position to consume your food. Yeah, you could use Support Max. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to a mental state. You know, you can be the type of person to be like, oh, I can never switch off from training. Again, that's that mental side of, oh, I've got weak calves, I've got this, I've got that. Like, you don't have to be what you think you are a lot of the time. Like, I think people sort of get stuck in the ways of like, I am this, I am that, and I can't change it. When you definitely can. It just comes down to sort of that mental strength and that sort of drive to change it. Like, we've had it loads of times where we've been like, oh, this is this or this is that, and we can't do that. And it's like, well, you can. You're just not used to it yet, or you haven't changed it yet. So, yeah, I think, like, obviously your answer in regards to work and everything was good, but if it's just a case of, anybody trying to relax after you've trained and switch off from it, then focus on your breathing, focus on like putting music on, even just like switch your phone off or stay away from social media, those kind of things that'll help.
Yeah, spot on. Right, you got a question to finish, or is that it?
Biggest mistakes you two have made in bodybuilding careers? I feel like we've answered that, and we've answered it loads of times.
Yeah, listen to episode, like, literally, I think we answered that. Do you want to do one mistake?
I think it was the title as well. It was like biggest mistakes beginners make, and obviously that kind of relates to us. So I can't even remember my answer, but I'm sure we've answered it, mate. So we can leave that one.
Yeah, that's all good. Right, is that everything?
Yeah, mate, that's all the good ones I've got.
Spot on. Right, well, another episode 17, you said, wasn't it?
Yes.
Of the Once You're In, You're In podcast, featuring Reece at 8.5, 9.5. 9.5 weeks or 8.5 weeks? What is it? I don't even know.
September 26th. It'll be 8.5.
8.5, yeah. 8.5 weeks. 8.5 weeks out. By the next time, 7.5 weeks out. We are less than the 2-month marker, which is getting exciting. But other than that, again, appreciate you guys for listening. I will be a bit leaner next week. Finn will be a bit fatter. And that's pretty much how it's going to be going. We might cross on the stairs body weight. That would be a funny episode. That's for sure. But no, other than that, appreciate the questions. As mentioned, keep them consistent. Like, if you feel like, you know what, this is a week where they might not get many questions, ask. And if you feel like, you know what, there's probably going to be a lot of questions coming through this week, if you just get that urge, don't ask. Wait for the next week. Make sure they're consistent. That's what we can say. But no, appreciate all the story tags. Any questions that do come through on Tuesdays, we put the story box up usually like late Tuesday morning or early Tuesday morning. So in the morning, pretty much on Tuesdays. If you guys have any questions for the following episodes, feel free to ask, whether it's regarding, let's say, something you want answered or a personal topic, whatever. I feel like personal topics are actually quite good. Something that's not off the status quo of the usual bodybuilding realm. Something a bit more personal would actually be quite a good kind of like realm to go down. But either way,
how big is your penis?
Yeah, fortunately Sanai's out the room, so I can lie. 12 inches. Yeah, it's 12. Yeah, honestly, man, I can guarantee, isn't it? But no, other than that, guys, thanks for listening as always. Next episode will be next Tuesday, and we'll catch you guys later.